I want to give you some help on these word problems that are really involving three variable systems. So I'm hoping that with some practice you'll start to pick up on the strategy that's involved in helping us come up with the three equations that make up the system. And then hopefully if you can come up with the system, then I'm hoping that solving using normally substitution won't be too bad. But let's see if we can identify some strategies that work every time when we're trying to solve these three variable systems. Well, here is this number 19 problem. We went over it in class. I felt like I kind of had to rush through. And a lot of people had questions about this problem, so I'm hoping that by making this video, you'll be able to go back and maybe just rewatch those areas that are giving you the most problem. So number 19 again, we're investing in three different accounts. And the ultimate question here is how much did we place in each account? So just think of it this way, whatever the question is asking for, we need a variable that represents each of the parts of this question, which in this case, we need a variable that represents each of the three accounts. All right, it really doesn't matter what you pick. I'm going to pick X as the short-term notes. Okay, Y will be government bonds. I'll just abbreviate it as GB, government bonds. And maybe we should get a little more specific. This is our investment. So these represent dollar amounts. How much did we invest in short-term notes? How much did we invest in government bonds? And then how much did we invest in utility bonds? All right, so that's our first move, is to identify variables that will help us answer the question that's being asked. Okay, so now it's from these sentences that we're going to come up with three equations with three variables. I must come up with three equations. Well, the first equation will come from this first sentence. I noticed that this company placed $1 million in these three accounts. So the amount of the investment in short-term notes, which is X, plus the amount of the investment in government bonds, plus the amount of investment in utility bonds, totals $1 million. All right, so that's my equation number one from that first sentence. Okay, let's see what else we know. It placed part of the investment in short-term notes, twice as much. Now, this might be a little confusing for some, but whatever we did in short-term notes, it's saying we did twice that amount in government bonds. Okay, so I'm just going to label with a different color this second phrase here. Part of my investment went in short-term notes, which is X, and twice that amount, whatever we did in short-term notes, twice that amount went to government bonds. So in other words, my government bonds investment should be 2 times whatever short-term notes investment was. Okay, so government bonds, which is Y, is the same as twice the short-term notes investment. Or in other words, Y is the same as double or 2 times the short-term notes. Okay, so that's equation 2. And then we'll just go back to, we'll just use black here. Our third equation, and this is always going to be true for these investment type problems, we need an equation to represent the amount of interest that we're going to earn. And we earn interest based on a certain percentage of our investment. and the problem tells us what those percentages are. So we're going to earn 4.5% of whatever we invested in short-term notes. Well, just the thing that you got to be careful with here is make sure you change these percentages into decimal. All right, so 4.5% is 0.045, and that needs to be multiplied times whatever we invested in short-term notes. Okay, and we're going to add that to our 5% return on government bonds. So 5% times the amount we invested in government bonds. And then the 4% return is on the utility bonds, which I'm just calling Z. And all of these, if we take all of the separate returns from each of our investments, we should end up with a total of $4,500. And I typed that in wrong. I'm sorry. I'm just going to make that change right now. I don't know where I got 4,500. It should be 45.5. And I apologize for that. But I don't want to do this video over, so we'll just make that little adjustment. It hasn't affected us so far. So hopefully you see that all of my investments, the return on the investment, that's what these percentages represent, how much I'm going to get back. And adding all those up, I should get 45,500. So really, the tough part of these problems is done when we've come up with the system of the three equations. And for most of these problems, it's going to be true that the easiest way to go forward is to use substitution. Okay? Because if you notice here in the middle, I have y solved for. Y is equal to 2x. And so substitution says take what you have as y, which is 2x, and put that in place of the other two y's. So we're going to replace y in the blue equation and in the black equation. So let's see if we can fit that in down here. If I replace y with 2x, I get x plus 2x plus z is 1,000,000. And some people chose to go ahead and remove the decimals, and I think I'll proceed using that little strategy. It's not required, but I do want to just caution you here. If you are going to slide the decimals so that you don't have any decimal expression in this equation, then that's going to mean we're going to move the decimal 3 places. Whatever we choose, we have to do the same across the board. And so that really is like saying I'm going to multiply this bottom equation by 1,000. Now if that's confusing to you and you don't understand what's going on at this point, this is not required, but some people would choose to not use decimals for whatever reason. So I'm showing you a way to get rid of the decimals. All right, so if you did multiply by 1,000, this would be the result. This would be 45x. This would be 50y. And this would be 40z. And you're going to basically have 45,500,000. Okay. So let's just use, some people today wanted me to work this equation or this system out with this equation. So let's just use it instead. All right, so this will be our number 3. And so now I'm going to replace, let's just come over here, I'll change the color. And in this equation number 3, I'm going to replace y with 2x. Okay, so I got 45x, And if I replace y with 2x, let me just show you that in case you're not following. It's like 50 times 2x, which is just 100x, right? So let's just put 100x here so we don't have to write another line. So this is 100x plus 40z equals 45,5. Okay, and then we can combine like terms in both cases. X plus 2x is 3x. And 45 plus 100, of course, is 145x. All right. Now, hopefully you know what to do at this point. We're going to take the red, and the blue, these two equations that have x and z in them, and we're going to put a system together using those two equations. So I'm going to go to the next slide and just rewrite these, and then we'll show the elimination process at that point. All right, so 3x plus z is 1,000,000. And the other one was 145x plus 40z. 145x plus 40z is 45,5. All right, and we're setting up for elimination. So hopefully you see that the easiest variable to eliminate is z. We're going to eliminate z. I'm going to do it by multiplying the top equation by 40 and then subtract. So 40 times 3x is 120x. 40 times z is 40z. And then over here, we're just going to have 40 million. I'm not doing anything to the bottom equation. I'm going to leave it. And now we're going to eliminate z with subtraction. This is going to get us our first variable. We're going to find out what that investment in short-term notes is, x. All right, so 120 minus 145 is negative 25. Z is eliminated. And now we're going to subtract 40 million minus 45,5, and that's 5,500 negative. And now we need to divide. So once again, your calculator would probably come in handy here. And when we divide, we get 220,000. And again, this is an investment amount, so we should show dollars. So what we found out is we invested 220,000 in short-term notes. And that's going to help me find my other investment that's showing here, this Z variable, which stands for utility bonds. So I'm going to pick the easier one, looks like the blue, and I'm going to do 3 times 220,000 plus Z equals 1,000,000. 660,000 is 1,000,000. And now you just subtract 660,000 from both sides, and you're going to get 340,000 for Z. And again, that's dollars. So we invested 340,000 in utility bonds. And the only thing left is to find our Y variable, and that's pretty easy to find using this second equation. Y is equal to 2 times whatever X is. And we've already found X, so Y is just double that amount. And so it should be pretty simple to see that y is going to be $440,000. Okay, and so that's my final answer. I'll just show it. We should maybe just write these numbers by the explanations of the variables, so we can let that be our context for this problem. So 220,000 was invested in short-term notes. 440,000 was invested in government bonds, and 340,000 was invested in utility bonds. And good check to just make sure that those add up to $1 million. That was the total investment amount. Okay, and so that's your answer for number 19 on page 153. Trust me, the more you do these, the easier it gets. These investment problems all have a lot of similarities to them. And the way you set up the equations, especially these two equations, are very similar. The total investment equation and the interest equation, those always set up that way. And then you've always got this wild card equation that's a little different, but the more you do these, the easier it gets. So keep practicing. If you struggled with this, or if you came to class and you really didn't know what to do, maybe you left class and you still weren't quite sure what to do. Watch this and then see if you can do it on your own. And that's how you're going to get better. Let me know if I can help you.